你好. My name is Jimahn KIM, and I'm the CEO of SoCar. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this great program. And I'm very excited to share our story with you in this morning. I had a big fight with my wife. It's about 4 years ago. In the morning, I had a very important meeting, and I gotta use my. We had one sedan in my family, and I gotta use that car in the morning. And when I go out for the work, and okay, honey, I gotta use car for a day, and she said no. She gotta go to hospital for my daughter at that day. So I had a big problem because a group of people supposed to come my town, and I gotta use my car at that day. So after that big fight, I considered to buy second car or whatever. So I majored in finance, so I calculated a lot. So okay, how many days, okay, or how many times I used our cars in a week or in a month? We just use 2 or 3 times, a week, and that makes total like 100 minutes a week. And do I have to buy second car? That doesn't calculate for my calculation. It doesn't make sense. So I thought about it, more and more. That makes much more ridiculous things. The utilization of car is very low. The average car are traveling less than an hour for a day in average car in the world. So 90% of the day, they just parked in the lot. They don't move, they don't work, okay? And you know how much it costs, right? We gotta pay for monthly lease, insurance, maintenance, gas, and everything, it costs a lot. So something's wrong for me. It looks weird, We spend a lot of money for owning car, but, what if we can use a car when we need it? We can access to, it's shared car when I just, 2 or 3 times a week when I need it. That's our story began, okay? SoCar is a social venture, and, started the company 3 years ago. And today we have over 1,300 vehicles all over the Korea. And we have 300,000 members in 20 cities. And we had like a 60,000 reservation a month, which means, they make reservation for over 1 reservation per minute. So it's very growing, and it's a fast expansion period for SoCar in last 3 years. But our beginning was very humble, and it was very hard. First 12 months or 16 months, it was like, it's nightmare. And I will never ever go back to that day because of, the new things in the world. We gotta solve too many obstacles or, barriers to move forward. As I mentioned before, the utilization of average car is very low, and we spend too much money. So, I decide to, make something that happen for our life change things for car usage in urban living. And we decide to be a change maker for this kind of a movement, and we launched our service in Jeju Island in 2012. Jeju Island is very famous tourist destination in Korea, and over 10 million tourists visit Jeju Island a year. Huge people, come and visit to the island every year. So there are many rental company, and so many cars are parked in the lot in low usage season. And the public transportation in Jeju Island is weak. So average household, they have second car, even third car, like me. So we studied the data and found out that the average number of vehicle in Korean household is 0.45. And the average number of vehicle in Jeju Island is 1.15. It's more than double than national average. And the household income is the lowest in our nation. So it seems very ridiculous for us, our team. So which means they spend too much money for owning the car. And this is kind of mismatch for demand or social inefficiency seems very big for us. So that's why we started our service in Jeju Island, which means what if we can use this huge number of cars parked in the lot when we need it, just 30 minutes, 1 hour, pay per use, because the technology of smartphone, we, have smartphone on every single hands, and, we can make some, information technology make it possible for this kind of service. Then, something's gonna be changed, compared to the old days. So we think about it for car sharing in Korea, especially in Jeju first. So first 12 months in Jeju Island, it was very hard, but very meaningful period, because we made everything, and the people acknowledge the value of SoCar very fastly. We had many problems because we gotta develop the system, car sharing system, which means there is no reference in Korea. So we had many trial and errors. The car sharing systems, they use a lot of electricity, battery in car. So if customer doesn't use 2 or 3 days, the battery is is just out. So the entire system was down. The first period of the service, the utilization is low, so that makes, that was very painful, our ass. So we are like, for me, instance, I was in CEO in the morning, in the lunchtime, I was like a call center representative, and after lunch, I was mechanic, in evening, I was, like engineer or whatever. We wore, many hats, in same days. Yeah, it was very hard, but what makes us very excited is that the people acknowledge the value of this service. They understand what we try to solve the problem, and it just makes sense for them. So this small island, and just we had 30 cars at the beginning, and they use it, and they like it, and they use it again, and they talk to their friends, and it just works. So we find out that in Korea, many people doubt about it. They thought it would not work in Korea, but it worked, and we had to consider to scale up for this service. It's very amazing coincidence. We try to make new service for urban mobility for a year, and that time, by accident or coincidence, Seoul, metropolitan government, they declared the sharing city policy. Mayor Park made an idea for the entire idea for sharing city, and they made a support or subsidy for a sharing company. So we decided to enter into this big city for our scale up. So we redesigned every single process and service flow and technology whatsoever, and we applied for the official partner for car sharing company in Seoul. And the funniest thing is that there were many big companies applied for that project, like conglomerate or the huge company applied for this project, and there were two companies selected as official partners. One is also very big company, and the other is SoCar, which is very small social company. But we had a passion, idea, and it's just have a great passion to make the world, world change. So we, had a right to use as official partners of Seoul Car Sharing Company, and then we started the service in Seoul, our second service city. So from Jeju is the end of the south part of the South Korea, and to the biggest city in the country. That's our story for first year. So Seoul is our second service city after 1 year, and as you know that Seoul is a mega city, and it's like a big city in the world. And as you see that over 10 million people live in Seoul, is approximately 20% of the entire country, and including surrounding city, there are 20 million people lived in Seoul metropolitan area, which means so almost half of the people in Korea lived in this area. And this is a subway map in Seoul, compared to Hong Kong, okay? Very complicated, right? Public transportation is very rigid and, elaborate in Seoul. And the infrastructure for, telecommunication, the speed of internet or, the usage of, the wireless mobile phone is very, very strong in Korea. So, which means that we can live without car, by using subway, bus, taxi, whatever. And occasionally, we do need car, right? 1 or 2 per month or week. We had a date for dinner, or we gotta go suburb of a city. We have to buy big, heavy things, in a Walmart, or sometimes we do need a car, but not entire day, just 2 or 3 hours, 1 or 2 times a week. So that makes sense for car sharing works in Seoul. And urbanization is more and more, many people getting together in Seoul and surrounding city. That makes, housing, transportation, environment problem, more worse. And as I mentioned before, that inefficiency, social inefficiency is big problem, because 90% of the day, the car is parked in the lot, and 90% of the seat, they drive alone. So what are inefficient exists in this big city. So kind of collaborative consumption, shared use, or paid as you use, or access-based use consumption. Can it works? At mega city in Seoul, or the young people in this country? That's our question at the time we enter into Seoul City. And we worried very much, because we had just 50 vehicles in Jeju Island, and the member is like 1,000 or 2,000 people. And as you can see, there are a lot of people living in Seoul, and we worry that can we do that for service in that kind of density? But as a social ventures, we rush this and dash that. We had many trial and errors, but we solve one problem by one and move forward. So as social ventures go forward, make people recognize our service, know about it, use it, reuse it, refer to friends, and the government policy make much easier to the facilitate this kind of new service. The biggest the benefit of sharing city policy is for car sharing company is parking lot. The biggest barrier to enter this market is especially in Seoul, very population density is very high, and the size of land is small. There is big problem in parking lot. So, even if you have, enough money, they don't allow to me have a monthly parking contract near a subway station or, it's a commercial district. It's very hard to get a designated spot for monthly basis. But, Seoul government, they allowed, official car sharing company to use that public parking spot for designated basis. So that is the biggest benefit for a private company. So that makes us to, expand more rapidly in this mega city. Other than car sharing project, they support many sharing company or sharing organization. So if you go to english.sharehub.kr, you can see many project or company or organization who are trying to make some business in sharing economy. They had many events for promotion, and they support a lot of things for sharing companies do their work easily. We share parking space also, and we share the space for living or tourist hospitality. We also sharing items like cloth, book or tool. We also can access to public data. So they open the database for private company. So as I mentioned before, car sharing project in Seoul, they don't support any the money to private company. We as a social venture, we gotta try to survive in terms of sustainability, but they support the big problem or obstacles like parking lot is kind of indirect support. Okay, so we gotta survive in our effort, but parking lots or promotion or reliability by government, that makes this kind of rapid growth made happen. This is our growth curve of number of vehicle and number of SoCar zone, which means a parking lot for car sharing service. 2012, 2013 is very slow, but the people recognize the service, they reuse it, they recommend to their friends, is growing very high. And Seoul government promote car sharing in various ways, the conference or offline events, or is advertisement in subway. They had a indirect support for car sharing project or private company. I like this picture because of J curve. We made a very big effort to make this service happen. The number of membership is increasing very high, and number of usage and duration is going up like J curve. What I want to try to explain to you is that it was very small and very humble project at the beginning, but we try to find what customer needs, what they want, which car they want to use, or what time, what purpose. We try to make data more useful, or make that very good service. People in market economy, they love this idea, and government support makes more fear about this expansion. So the important point is that if you try to think about social venture or social project for this kind of service or sharing economy, you gotta make customer happy first. You gotta make this service work. You gotta make the people recognize your brand. The government is not able to make that kind of market. The private companies as social venture make that kind of service first, and fortunately government support make them go fast. So if you see this kind of growth curve, you gotta do a lot of effort to make customer happy first. So there is no exception, I think. So we try to expand to nationwide. So Jeju Island to Seoul and surrounding city, and we are going to expand the metropolitan cities in Korea. So we covers every metropolitan city in Korea, and next 2 or 3 years, we hope to make more and more SoCar zone in entire country, so that you can use shared car in everywhere you go. So you don't have to buy a car in your life. So that's our vision, and that's our challenge to solve the problem. So we try to provide more cars, more coverage in Korea, but we hope that like Seoul government, the other municipal governments try to introduce car sharing project like Seoul, which make this kind of service more adapt easily. So our impact is have a both economical impact and environmental impact. And if you use car sharing service 5 days a week, you will save at least 20,000 Hong Kong dollars at least a year. And more than that, it's kind of smart consumption in millennial generation, because we buy a single music, not an album these days, right? When I was young, I gotta buy an entire CD for just one music. So I gotta pay for 150 Hong Kong dollar for just one music. But at these days, we go to iMusic and we just buy just one music. So as that kind of concept, we can access to the car as we need it. Okay, so that makes our life more smart, and that prevents excessive consumption in our when we're young, the budget is very tight, so we can live more and more. But with less budget. And as a study said that the people using the car sharing service, they are more likely to use public transportation. So public transportation makes they don't use car more often, and they try to use public transportation, and they decrease vehicle miles by 40% annually. And one car sharing shared car replaces 15 owned vehicle in our street. So if we provide 1,000 vehicle, we can get rid of 15,000 vehicle in the street in long term. So the decrease of travel mileage that makes eliminate the CO2, and we use like a hybrid electric vehicle or the compact car which have low emission, that makes our environment more healthy. So the first in the world car sharing industry, SoCar got certified as a B corporation. So we are doing our business as forces good, and we are trying to make our business focus on that environmental and social impact for our urban living or our life. So futures of mobility or transportation is going to be changed a lot. In next 2 or 3 years, our life of mobility, move from A to B is dramatically changed. At today, it's changed a lot. You can you can see the news, Uber, Lyft, whatever. But the point is that the taxi industry versus Uber, Lyft versus Uber, that is not the point I want to talk about. The point is that our life of mobility is changing rapidly at these days. So in mobile phone and payment information in your phone, GPS and social network service as a social reputation, that makes P2P transaction or shared access to transportation tools very much. Okay, so we have to prepare. SoCar is preparing for the concept of a new mobility community, which means we have to develop, the P2P car sharing or on-demand service for mobility, and just autonomous cars developed by Google. You can just call autonomous cars in this place. You can use it and drop off at any place in the city. That's the picture of 3 years later from now. So we are dreaming about it. So how to make more smart consumption for our urban living of transportation or mobility is our next challenge or our next homework we have to solve. We are hoping that many people participating in this kind of movement, and try to change the way of living. So I hope that Hong Kong City, adapt, sort of sharing city policies and, make this kind of smart life, make it possible. And community, the people use our service, our brand, love our brand is our key asset to maintain our service or to grow our service. So this is the very important aspect of sharing economy. The people in our community make more service or more benefit or future picture for this kind of shared mobility or sharing economy service. So that's our story for last 3 years, and I'm very happy to share our story in front of you, especially in Hong Kong.